If you are learning to code like this, you need to stop. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. You need to stop. You are wasting your time. Most beginners and newbies make some common mistakes in their learning phase. They keep on watching tutorials and videos thinking they are learning. Meanwhile, they are stuck. In this video, I'll be explaining the 3 common mistakes beginners and newbies make in relation with my experience in the phase. Stay tuned. Firstly, we're going to be talking on tutorial trap. What do we mean by tutorial trap? This is a process whereby a beginner keeps watching tutorials, keep watching videos, and think they are probably learning. But under the hood, they are just whiling away time, you know, getting familiarized with the content. So it might look like you are gaining something or you are watching, but under the hood, it's just whiling of time. And based on my experience, when I started learning, I started as in the software development phase. I started as a backend developer, so I was learning Python. So at that point in time, I was majorly using Coursera platform to learn, and I was under a very good professor. His name is Dr. Chalk. I don't know if any of you had experience watching any of his tutorial. Yeah, so I think he's a professor in the University of Michigan. So I learned under him. He has like a series of books on Python. So my mistake there was I kept on watching videos, was reading the book back to back, end to end. And at the end of the day, you will realize that, you are reading, you are watching, but if you are to call yourself into action of what you've actually, learned in the process of all these things, you will have little or nothing to bring out of it. So it's just, your brain is telling you, you are learning because of the time you spend, the time you give to it. But when it comes to the moment of realization, you end up not having anything tangible. If you want to put what you've learned into use, you find out that you always have to go back, and always have to keep watching, keep watching, keep watching. Then you are stuck. Do you understand? Now, instead of you doing the real deal, you end up watching tutorial, and the body can be so relaxed to the point of getting stuck on this. So that's what we call tutorial trap. At some point, you see someone saying, I've been learning this particular programming language for like 7 months, 8 months. I know it's not easy to learn or to master, a programming language. But there's always a sign of growth when learning. There has to be changes. That's what brings about growth. The second problem is copy and paste. Yeah, as a developer, everybody knows we have Control V, Control C, Control V. That's for Windows, and to the Mac owners, we have Command C, Command V, which is for copy and paste. One of the efficient, command that is actually very necessary for a developer. Yeah, that's by the way. Now, this can be a very common, problem experienced by a beginner or a newbie in this space. Now we watch tutorials, we watch videos, and our instructor in this video, will create a project while teaching. Now it's more like hands-on learning, which is actually very efficient, So, but most people tend to, go in line with this. At the end of the day, they already have the code. They are not doing the thinking. You do understand? Like you are following the path. You are not doing the thinking. You are following. At that point, you might feel you are very, very productive because of, the developer, the instructor is writing, okay, Python, wherever, and you are going along. At that point, your brain is registering, I'm actually coding. You are actually coding, but you are not doing the thinking process. You are just doing the following process. And we need to come into the realization of that. It's actually very cool. It's actually a very nice step, to mastery. But we need to always remember that we are following. It is a process of learning. That's very important. Now, the copy and paste is a mistake in what sense? After watching tutorials, going through the tutorials and having sample projects, gotten from the uh, tutorial, you just come up with, okay, something, I've built something, I've built something, I've built something. Whereas it's just a sample of a project that we followed through those tutorials. Now, if this is how everyone is doing it, that particular project will be on most portfolios of, you know, most developers, if we are to be sincere. Now, in this essence, what is required is you follow through and you learn the processes of the development, in whatever space or programming language you are learning. Now, see it as a building phase, as a development, and also a learning phase. You don't just copy and paste, you don't just clone the project and paste it and put it as your own code base. And I'm going to use myself as an example in this. I think that would be Dennis Ivy. He teaches majorly Python, but he also teaches other programming languages on his platform. I think he also does a video with Brad Traversy, if I'm very correct. So I was watching his tutorial and we built a sample project. And at that point in time, when I was learning, I was just like, yeah, I have a project to my name. I actually built this. Then over time, I think I came to the realization of this project, is something I copied. Now, what is required for me is, understand the processes and also add additional functionalities to the platform. That's a sign that I am learning. So it's not just more of copy and paste. It's more of copying, pasting, learning, and re-evolving. That's what brings about learning. Sometimes you copy and paste, which is actually fine. But do you go back to check these videos? Do you go back to check the projects? Do you try to understand, the particular flows? It's understandable that you might not actually understand the whole concept as a whole, but do you try to figure even the little and the smallest thing in the code base? Now that's a sign of learning. The inquisitiveness of wanting to know how things work under the hood, is a sign of learning. So now at this space, it's beyond copy and paste. So one of the ways you can use to break, this mistake are the things I've stated, beforehand or aforementioned. So you learn as you are learning, you copy, you paste, or you go along, but don't forget to check back into the things that you've learned. Ask questions, make inquiries. This will help, so that you'll be fulfilled beyond, copy and pasting. The third and the last problem I'll be addressing is having no project. I might have touched a bit, regarding project building and the second problem. Now, one of the mistake newbies make is not thinking of project ideas that they could build for themselves from scratch. All right, so if we're talking on learning processes, I feel personally, now this is my own opinion, I feel one of the best way and effective way to learn is to learn hands on, like building with your hands, building. And this is actually going to bring about mistakes, and mistakes gives you avenue to learn. It brings about correction. You have time to correct yourself. You have time to go back, learn, and whatever you've learned or relearned to bring into use. Now, building of your own project, brings about sense of responsibility. You know, you have to sit down, come up with a project idea, then start thinking of how you're going to go about it. Now, you might actually have to go back to the tutorial you've watched, or probably have to go back to making research on particular stuffs, because you might actually get stuck while building, either reaching some points whereby you don't really have enough knowledge on implementing some particular features. It's actually normal. Tutorials can't cover everything you need to know. It's just going to teach you the basics. And at this point, you are evolving from being, being a basic developer to becoming an intermediate developer. You will have to learn, about, things like probably scaling, deployments, using Docker, and many more. So the more you make this research, the more you build projects, the more you will see things you don't know. And the more you see things you don't know, the more you learn them, then this becomes additional knowledge. So it's advisable that you start learning how to build projects on your own. Think of project ideas, work on something. Don't mind if someone has actually worked on something similar before. Now, don't forget that the goal here is mastery. The goal here is to understand and to put into action what you've learned. Because what's the essence of learning something and it, being in the brain and not put to use? Over time, these things get lost. It gets out of the brain. But the way the human brain works is, once you do things consistently, it becomes part, of the brain. It becomes, part, of your memory. So that you won't always have to, go back, go back, go back. While starting, you might actually have to go back. But once you do this consistently, you keep building, you keep making use of the things you've learned. Even commands like, pattern manage.py run server. At some point, these commands, you always have to make research to use them because you might actually forget while starting out, while learning. But as time goes on, these things, stay right in here. It stays right in here and it stays in the brain. You already know what to do even without making any research on probably even using AI now. Since AI is very popular now, then we're probably using Stack Overflow, making use of search engines, to resolve our problems. But I think life is a bit easier. So I'm stating that you need to build more projects. You will learn faster and you learn better. Now, this is the way at which you can get better as a beginner and newbie. Stop learning like that and start learning like this. See you in my next video. Ciao.